everyone. My name is Justina Osowska, and I am the founder and CEO of Women in Blockchain Canada. I'm very pleased today on February the 6th to be joined by Angella Goran and Jason Tousley. We are doing basically the top Women in Blockchain series with our non-for-profit Women in Blockchain Canada. And we've decided to have Angella as our first guest because of her newest project and endeavor. So Angella, why don't you introduce yourself and let us know what you're working on?
Oh my gosh, how much time do we got? Well, hi everybody, a pleasure to be here today, and thank you so much, Justina and Jason, for having me on. I am joining everybody from the nation's capital in Canada, so in Ottawa, Ontario. Of course, everybody, I know at this stage, I always laugh, like most of us are floating around the world, but the pandemic's made us so isolated. So it's kind of neat to say I'm at our headquarters. Everybody moved back home, but I'm the proud founder of TapnGo Technologies Incorporated, where we are fully, just as we said, tap and go. We're on-demand digital financial services as well as insurance products. Do you want me to start with kind of my background, Justina, or what would you like me to start with?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'd like to get like an idea because a lot of people would be like, what was sort of your journey and how did you get here? So why don't we start with that?
Yeah, no, for sure. Because I think, yeah, exactly. A lot of listeners that are tuning in are coming to listen in the wonderful journey of entrepreneurship as we know it. I do not come from a financial services background, nor do I come from taking business in university, which I think I always like to share that with people that are kind of, new to the space, saying, what is that? What is entrepreneurship? So I rather stumbled into it out of cause. Anybody that knows me and Justina is one for quite so many years. We've met numerous times at events. But my background and passion is definitely giving back to community and people, particularly youth. So I started my journey from the West Coast of Canada, graduate from the University of Victoria in 2004, which happened to be the same year that I participated as an injured athlete, unfortunately, in the 2004 Olympic Games. But I think more so it's that tale of the journey from 2004 and going into what was at the time my dream and ambition was to become a very young politician, which of course here in Ottawa, you would understand the federal government. This is where it's all at. So I studied political science and I moved very quickly after graduating in 2004 and worked for my first boss, an incredible woman, overseeing the Minister of State for Early Childhood Development under Linda Reid. And at the time, the former Premier of British Columbia, she was the then Minister of Education, Childhood and Families, so Christy Clark. So kind of two powerhouse women bosses to begin my career as a young female. And it soon became apparent to Minister Reid that I had other ambitions, and she thought moving to Ottawa and getting me off of the island, Vancouver Island, because of course the provincial government is in Victoria. So I had island fever. She moved me and thought, let's get you introduced to some people in Ottawa. So that's how I landed here. And that puts me back. I can't believe I'm saying this, Justina. But honestly, where does time go? I still feel like I'm 15 at heart, but 15 years ago now, and I'm still in Ottawa. I haven't moved back, which everybody goes, you moved from Vancouver Island. As I see Jason's beautiful picture in the background.
I myself moved from Toronto, so I get that a lot too. So everyone, criticize you going either way, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I do have lots of family still out west, so I think my mom's actually tuning in today. So hi, Mom, and listening in. But so everybody I still know in my family and my heart are obviously West Coast roots. But yeah, I moved to Ottawa in 2005 rather, and I worked up on the Hill for a very brief time. And this kind of shows the trajectory of where I got, and I think it's a really important part of the story for everybody. Where I worked for the then Minister of HRSDC. So in Canada, that stands for Human Resources and Social Development Canada. It's changed its acronym now, but Monty Sahlberg at the time was the minister, Minister Sahlberg. Very incredible minister to work under. He came from a marketing and a media background. He now lives in Medicine Hat, Alberta, and is obviously retired from politics. But interesting to go from a liberal government provincially to a federal conservative government, had lots of background experience working there. But when I got into HRSDC, the primary thing that I really fell in love with was this one area of looking at the creation of jobs in Canada when it came to my generation and the generations to come. And it was looking at debt financing and the student debt that we had. And, you know, being 27, 28 at the time, and I don't mind sharing, I'm 42 now, you know, at 27, like I had student loans, I was working and I had a great job, and it really impacted me to see the numbers and the volumes of young people, not just in Canada, but globally, that really didn't understand financial literacy. So that was that grassroots point where, again, I didn't know at the time I was going to ever be going into financial service technology, but it was that first kind of point that I really had an interest. I then left and actually went back into my passion of sport and giving back to community, and did a stint with the Canadian Olympic Committee with the HPC Run for Canada, and really put my marketing roots on. And that's where I started a really fun project, my first small business, which was a sock company called Sock Jock, which lots of people know me in Ottawa for, just, you know, would remember it. Lots of fun socks. But it had a financial literacy program for kids. And we were really, I'm really proud to still say today, like the program is handed off right now to the University of Ottawa, which is kind of waiting to have things open back up. We've had a tough year with schools, but the socks in the school program grew at one time to over 13,000 high schools across Canada, taking something as simple as a sock and selling that and promoting the pillars of community, arts, sports, and academics to really encourage youth to understand the importance of giving back, but also rather how important sales are and what they could do by selling something as simple as a sock. So, you know, kind of some fun behind the scenes there, but that really started to open up my eyes behind kind of the financial services technologies. And I got pushed into that sector when I really thought if I could create a link to everyday banking or a financial tech company for these youth, this would be a great way to go. And, you know, that kind of, for me, is what triggered more conversation, I guess, around the financial services space. And in 2014, I had the pleasure to bike across Canada, again, as a pro athlete, and represent a bunch of brands and education programs. And it was there that I really saw, I could combine my passion for sport and lifestyle and financial services technology for next gen. So it was kind of, you know, you have to look at how many pillars or how many directions you can go in this world or the space. And I just thought, okay, well, it's expensive to live an active lifestyle. A lot of the conversation I learned with families was that importance of how do I, you know, afford to put my kids into summer camp this year? I can't afford to go to the gym because I have my kids' sport programs. So I thought if I was going to start in any realm, I was going to attack the area I was really passionate about. And I know very well what it's like to be a professional athlete representing Canada, and having that difficulty of not being able to have enough cash on the table to really pay the bills or get by or even save. You know, I always joke when I tell people, I think at one stage, and this is where, you know, Shopify, you should have existed about 15, 20 years ago, because athletes could have set up e-commerce. I had, like, I think a room with 4 other athletes when we were in university that had sunglasses and running shoes, like name a brand, right? And we just were able to put posters all over campus where people could come and buy from us to survive. So I wanted to tailor all of that and say, well, we have technology now that can actually enable that, and we can really go forward with creating a seamless interaction and really next gen banking. So TapnGo started actually as Athletica Rewards, and that's the main product and program that we have that's going to be launching in Q2 of this year. And it is, again, it's cloud-based banking for those that live an active lifestyle, that love sport and health and fitness. It's got a lot of unique features, some that, you know, we've got a couple of IP developments behind the scenes that I unfortunately can't announce today, but, you know, stay tuned. There's going to be some exciting things, but I'm really excited to, you know, go down that road of being one of Canada's first North American neobanks. And that's what TapnGo Technologies is. So we've incorporated blockchain into our technology, looking at how to tokenize ways to incentivize healthy living and health actions. And then better yet, because of the pandemic and thinking of the long-term picture of what is TapnGo Technologies, yes, it started as something athletic and lifestyle, but really we have the ability to look at other verticals. And that's what I'm really excited about, is being somebody who's a woman in business, and just business in general. We've seen a lot of small businesses take impact during the pandemic. And we're going to take that same technology that we've been building for the last 3 years and all of the licenses, both in Canada and the US, with our e-wallet and our digital banking products, to go and service creating, similar to Athletica Rewards, a small business card program for small business owners and founders to support them. And then also going back to my roots of my first company, something that really caters to the student, and the youth age 15 all the way up to 30. So that's, kind of a really, I guess, big, broad, general, where I started, where we're at today, and what's happening and transpiring in the next, I'd say, 3 to 6 months.
Well, thanks for that, Angela. That's a great overview. And it's also good to know where you're kind of started from. What I think I'd like to go into is like right now, DeFi, decentralized finance, is really becoming something that is being looked at, and especially with what's happening around the world with like the banking fees, and in terms of people wanting to have a higher degree of transparency. So maybe you can touch on like how that motivated you in your business and how you're going to incorporate these things within.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, you nailed it. I think right there's an interest, right? It first comes, we saw the markets really shift in the last 2 weeks by giving, people the opportunity where that you can see that people have an interest in the decentralization and the movement of where they're putting their money. I think more than ever, people are starting to see the amount of interest and transaction rates and interchange fees that transpire with the money they earn. And I always kind of go back, it's funny, if you earned $100 and you put it in a bank account, is it really fair that $30 of that is gone, of that hard-earned money, when you like, really is that necessary? And that's where decentralization has become, it is a hot topic. We still have to work with the banks from the regulator standpoint, from an exchange. And that's where definitely blockchain and crypto have some friction right now, obviously, as we start to move forward. But I think for myself, like, it's really looking at that mode of like, what does next gen banking? Technology and innovation have come a long way from, a century ago, 2 centuries ago, or even more than that, right? Like, where people were exchanging, goat milk for like the barter system for currency. And I think that's where now, when banking traditionally came over from Italy to North America, and this is going back over 100 years ago plus. And at that stage, it was more of a security way for somebody to hold on to money, so that in essence, if something burnt down at that time, or you were to travel, that somebody was overseeing your finances. And it's morphed now where we've got, chips and technology and interchange, and obviously transaction rates have to happen, but they've become glorified. And there hasn't been a way to stop that. And I guess that's where you're starting to see some really neat companies come into the space saying, well, we're willing to take the risk and lower those transaction rates, because we realize if people start to make use of our product or our program, the volume, just like anything, the volume is going to pay off, right? And that's where I think that's the start of decentralization. If we were to go back, 5 years ago, where you started to see Chime and Robinhood, some of these early stage what I call, neobanks, challenger banks, starting to take precedence, even though they started a lot earlier than that, but they finally got the regulators to agree to them being more publicly known. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of these things, a lot of solutions to problems that not a lot of people are willing to solve. And so when they're solving those problems, it's where they're all of a sudden there's there, and you're able to now get a whole business out of it. It's great. Because I know there are a lot of people that don't necessarily capitalize on the rewards programs won't really have an understanding of how important this is. But then you've got all these people who every day are living their life and not knowing that they're not capitalizing on all these different reward systems that are out there, and they put it all under the hood. You're likely to do so. You see the card companies trying to do that.
Yeah.
giving the time.
Yeah, it's kind of a lead. It's interesting. It's like a lead between education. Like I think people more than ever, especially our generation and our younger, are actually sincerely really wanting to understand their finances, which is fantastic. I'm excited about that. Obviously, we have more tools. Obviously, 20 years ago, you don't go back and you weren't walking around with a digital wallet and you weren't doing things like using apps like Wealth Simple or being able to purchase things like a Peloton and use a split payment tender with a firm. Like these companies have really come in and said, well, we're here to assist better ways for you to spend your money and maybe, save a little bit on the end. And I think that's where I'm super passionate about that area, coming obviously back from where I was working on the Hill. And I think that's where, again, it's not just Canada or the US, it's a global fact that we know that our generation or younger are not saving. And that's a problem, right? So how do we create those tools? And that comes with a little bit of decentralization, because the larger industry, banks and or insurance companies, they've already kind of built their infrastructure. It's like the slow, like the big moving ship, right? Like for it to turn and go starboard or port, it's going to take a really long time. So you got these small companies that come in and they've got a lot of room to pivot. They're there to listen to the market. And I think that's what makes it unique, is we're kind of, at least the way I view it, I'm a real bottom funnel looking at the top. Like I really want to grow from a grassroots perspective, want people to feel like they actually can talk to somebody about their finances, or, get the right support, understand how to use the products and the tools, and make the right conscious decision. It's not about, I just go to the bank to deposit a check. Well, hopefully that's not it. Like we really actually want you to be engaged, get the rewards, start earning from the spend that you do particularly, and start to make those right investments. And I think that's where the earlier on we're seeing that, there's more success and more chance for people to have security in the long term. And that's one of those basic needs that everybody needs, is access to finances. Otherwise, yeah, you're kind of stuck.
Yeah, and to add to your point, I think when you're starting out and not understanding already off the hop that there even is an opportunity to earn these rewards, you're not gonna really convince those people that aren't necessarily looking. And the crazy part is there's a huge amount of people that I think really know how to just sink their teeth into this, but yet they're really not getting optimized from what I gather. I know you hear about a TV show about extreme couponing, but it's not like everyday practice for people to get these amazing results. So it's crazy that it's taken this long for something to come out of that to make you look at your and what you're being done day out, the opposite, and look out like you said from the beginning, moving forward. Okay, before I spend that money, what's pathway to get a desired reward, and how do I get all of it into there, and then start back on an everyday level or my athletic lettuce situation.
Well, I think the fun part is it's interesting, like the rewards play. I really looked at that as the sticky, right? Like what's it going to engage people to come back and be a part of a program, right? And that's where, whether it comes from like a part of the blockchain or a tokenization product or program where you really start to encourage an inner currency to reduce some of those transaction fees, because now you're on one particular rail that allows that community or membership rather, right, to be able to transaction direct with that merchant processor based on the value of what that currency is. And that's what I'm really fascinated by with the blockchain and the crypto capacities or capabilities moving forward. And definitely we're looking at doing whether it be like an ICO or an IEO in the future. It's definitely a conversation for us. But going back to the rewards, Jason, you're 100% right. Like there's so much that can be done. And when you think about it, if I take you a step back and the audience that are listening to merchants and brands, right? We're all wearing clothing right now. That's a company that's gone and had to purchase, obviously design work to the fabrication to then the distribution to get the shirts that we're all wearing. And then they have to market. So, why are you wearing the shirt you're wearing? Why am I wearing the shirt? And when you look at that formula for that company, there's all these margins, and then they have to pay to try to sell it. So I always look at it from the reward space is really interesting. What we've gone and built within our digital, like within TapnGo, is I invested the time and the money to be able to build our own marketplace to allow our merchants to come into that community based on the vertical, to truly create that authentic feel that they belong in that community and they can reach a membership or a consumer that's going to acquire at a lower rate, right? So if you're somebody who's an athlete or you're somebody who's active and you're a runner, we know you're going to buy some form of a running shoe. So it makes better sense for a running shoe company to be able to market and promote what their products are directly into that membership if it costs nothing. And the only time they have to spend is when there's an actual acquisition. So that's how our marketplace rolls out, and also how we're able to encourage and reward more cash back into our audience, because well, the merchant's willing to spend what they would have spent on an ad into us. So that's where we come at it from a little bit of a different play than your traditional, air miles or points-based product or program. It's really some of those relationships that we're building with our marketplace.
And one of the things that we heard when we were, I was watching, what was it, the Futurist conference the other day, was the fact that, and I know as a former athlete, the two worlds are kind of merging together in a sense where I know back years ago when I would go to Red Wing games, it was getting a game worn jersey or X, Y, and Z. But now there's other people that I know that have an NFT of the Raptors winning their championship. And so there's this huge now market that wasn't there 10, 15 years ago that is kind of capitalizing on that wedging of the reality, and then also this network of people, like you said, that appreciate, they want to know exactly what shoe LeBron James is wearing. And God, if one of these people got their hands on that Apple item that's now like verified, it's on list, right? And so in that chain and link together, it's very interesting. That's kind of where I see is kind of in the sense, like it's we're there. It's just now a matter of sourcing through it, I guess.
Yeah, and you know what? It's kind of neat. Like there's so much innovation happening in the space if you look at it, right? And I think one of the things that we're going through right now is a really neat acquisition and a restructuring with a company that's out of Europe. And I can't really speak much about it, but all I can say, it's going to change and revolutionize the return to sport, especially large sporting events that have expos and or a village, right? So if you look at Spartan events and or Ironman events where tons of people like fly in and they get hotels and they're going to restaurants, you've got a whole movement of people, right? So now with obviously the concern around return to sport and safety and keeping the audience safe, but as well as the athletes, and then also at the same time capturing more data to really drive, the right brands and the right sponsors to be a part of that, we've created a really neat ecosystem with a wearable that we're soon going to be talking a lot about come June. And that's really going to change the way that we see what even products with payments can actually do in this space. And to the point where it's all done right through your application as well, right? So it's, we can start to understand you're an intermediate runner, so you probably go through running shoes within, every 6 months, so you need a new pair. So without even having to think, the behavioral, the BI AI within the technology starts to learn who you are as a profiled member and bases the suggestions on that, right? And I think that's where it's really neat is, making active living and health more affordable. Canada, we're really lucky, right? Like when we think about health, you go to the US, oh my gosh, like it's a whole other world talking about healthcare. So now creating a rewards program where people can earn cash from living an active lifestyle, their gym memberships, the products they consume, to put towards a life insurance product or a health insurance product, that's a game changer in a really big way. And same thing, even when you go over to some other countries, it really starts to facilitate a way that we can start to mobilize use of products that, right now people, even younger people, don't really quite understand, because it's insurance especially is one of those conversations, and insurance and financial services and go together, which is why we've built out a robust insurance product or program that will come at a later stage, because we really feel it's important to the audience to have access and make a choice on the right insurance based on the vertical that they're in.
Yeah, well,
That
I was gonna say the best way to hedge your bet against insurance is literally living a healthy lifestyle. So it's crazy. It's great that there's a gamification in a way, but it's teetering also on incentivizing versus there's a lot of programs out there where if you just attach your bank account, you get these multiple payments, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're burning those calories on that gym membership versus getting those calories. Sorry.
Exactly. Got it.
Yeah.
Christina, you were going to say something too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say maybe you can elaborate for some of the people in the audience who may not know how you can use blockchain to authenticate, what people are doing and sort of like understanding their behavior and using that BI tool that you were mentioning.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So, in a sense, like when you think about blockchain and finances, it's a fantastic space because obviously everything becomes really sovereign, secure. It has more of an integration. It's a more connected system, which is where it opens up open exchange and financial services, which is what I love. Like when you think about, let's put it the easiest way. We've all traveled. So the minute that you take your credit card and our bank account and you go elsewhere, there's all of these incredible fees that happen and oftentimes exuberant fees. Well, on a blockchain, when you put that into financial services technology and there's that level of added security, well, you don't have to necessarily look at all of those interchange and exuberant fees because, well, we know your profile. It's up and it's in the cloud, right? It's not with one body that's overseeing it. It's actually connected to all of the regulated bodies, and that's what makes it. For me, it's exciting and it's sticky. So, it really protects your profile, and I think that's one of the biggest things with us is as we look forward, the importance of next gen for financial services for me is like that privacy control for the individual, truly creating your own account, the authentication around that profile and where you make use of that profile, right? And having access to it at any point in time, and not being charged a lot for it. So the AI technology and the BI technology really comes in because, well, you, the user, are allowing the technology to learn. So again, it becomes your choice. You don't have to. I think that's a lot of organizations have left it now to the point where they're having to backtrack and allow those securities. But this really becomes the key is in your hands, right? And that, especially when it comes to your wealth and your finances, it always should be. And that's, something that I think is a flaw, because I think if we did do that centuries ago and we kept with that, people would actually be further along with their finances. So that, I hope that gives a little bit of the simplicity. There's a lot of, back end that happens when you think about blockchain and where it relates. Like there's a lot of different systems. Some people relate blockchain to just crypto, but there's a lot of user cases of blockchain and financial services as well as insurance. So.
Right. So I guess it's a two-part question. So the first part is like, how will your what you do help people like when they travel? And the second part is like when, like, let's say people do work out and then they end, like, let's say can you maybe go into how like your technology helps someone who's like getting that data on themselves? Let's say they have to change their shoes every couple of months because they're working out, but also like how does that benefit them? Because at the end of the day, they get like a better insurance rate, and authentically they can prove on the blockchain that that's what's been happening and get a better insurance price. So that's kind of like the things that I was like.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, why don't we start with the second one? Because that's, that really shows what Athletica rewards are, what our e-wallet is about on the blockchain side of things, with the rewards connected to the financial technology or the banking product. So yeah, you go and do a workout and earning those, as I call it, like, what we're going to be looking at is sweat rewards or sweat coins, whatever you want to call it. And from that, you can start to process those within a closed loop of merchants and our marketplace that have said, we value that currency, right? That's the number one thing, is being able to relate the currencies that come in to reflect on what you can shop and earn or what you can spend that money on. And because you have created a verified profile and it is secure on the network, and you've let the technology know who you are and what you're interested in, it becomes a part of the system to actually get to know you, right? So that's the most exciting part. So I'll use myself as a good example. I'm a pro cyclist, obviously. So if I was to sign up for Athletica and sign up for the e-wallet, I would create my profile and verify it. I would, choose what bank accounts, if I wanted to, and or credit cards to link in. I can also use the account as a depository if I choose to. And then same part is I go through the profile and recognize the areas that I have an interest in. So, going back to like the running shoes, in my case, it would be bike shoes or tubeless tires or whatever it be. Cyclists, we go through a lot of tires. So in that case, as I go through and I start to sign up and use Athletica Rewards, and I can integrate a lot of those tech companies like Strava, for example, it's going to tell that I'm biking a lot. So at a certain point in time, it's going to start to notify me a little bit about, hey, like you've accumulated a lot of miles at this point in time, you should consider changing your tires over. Here are some of the products in the marketplace that you can shop at, and oh, you're going to earn X amount of dollars back from that. But you can use your rewards because you've sweat it all out. So it's kind of that connectivity if it shows, right? And again, people have the choice of turning on those rewards or allowing the data to be shared. And I think that's where it becomes really important from a user case to understand that. And that's where right now, what I'm finding the disconnect with the centralized banks is that they don't understand the importance of allowing the consumer or the customer to really get to know them, right? And that's the difference. Like people actually do want to get to be known. It's not about, oh, well, why are they having access to my data? It's that they don't know why they need access to the data. So if we start with that, and that's why I love the product and starting it with blockchain and having the authentication, the profiles that are in there really allows your story and your persona to be valued. And that's key. Value of the person, authentication, access whenever, and accountability. And, those are really strong words, I think, for a lot of centralized banks. They say it a lot, but do they mean it? And that's where I'm impressed with a lot of companies that are coming out and challenging that space, because we do have the ability to listen to our customer, and that's what blockchain technology is allowing. Hopefully that answers that one. Do you want me to answer the travel one?
Yes, as well. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So when it comes to international travel, right, and we're moving places on an open exchange, when you have blockchain, again, going back to that verified profile, you've got one bank account. Well, the bank account isn't set at a certain address, and that's where your bank account is, and it's dealing with that, obviously that national regulator, which is key. What happens is that regulator's still obviously overseeing the transaction, but because now it is on a secure network, the transaction fees to do the exchange are not necessary. And that's where it becomes really interesting, because that's where you're getting charged a lot of those interchange fees when you go, you try to, let's say, take money out of an ATM. If you're Canadian and you go over to Europe, and you pull out money or you use your credit card, there's all these backlog fees that you start to see, and over and above interest rates. So on an open exchange, when you do that, it's really easy to do the conversion, right? Like I can go into my wallet and right away convert, if I had $100 Canadian, I could just convert it right away over into euro, and there's no charge for that. So it's that ability to stay within the account at a one tier level and having access, and there's no overcharge on getting access to your money wherever you go. That's the best way to explain it.
It sounds like in Bitcoin blockchain terms, like an atomic swap. So like you're within your wallet and you're just switching the currency without incurring like the cost. Like your wallet is basically the exchange.
You got it. Yeah. And you have to work with regulators to work with that. Like when people ask, well, how do you do that? It doesn't come easy. It's been like, that's why it's taken, like, Justina, how long have we known each other? 4 years I've been talking about this. So you do have to work and get your you have to work with either a body that has their MSB licenses. You've got to work with the right national banks and the bank regulators. Otherwise, you can't open exchange. So there's lots, like even when you look at certain open exchange networks, they'll only list the currencies that they can work within. So we're in the same model, but what we're doing is we're going and working with getting as many of those currencies on, so those charges are not there for our customers.
It's great that when you go, I think when I go different places, or even in Mexico, and you call Ed cell phone to have reception, or at least not have reception, but you're basically allowing them to charge you extra to use your phone down in a different country. And then all of these subsequent things are these hurdles in allowing you to do it. But yet, right when you land and you connect, your time changes and everything is accounted for your location. All of those things are in a, but at some point you seek that traction, and that's where it really they get to government into the almost how possible to make those transactions, or how to much cost for through those transactions.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. I think it's it's a fascinating space, and I think the nice thing, one of the exciting parts about going into financial services technology is the fact that there's so much room to welcome others into it. If you're curious about the space, there's obviously a lot you can learn, and I never claim fame that I know it all, and I never will, because I think this space is always going to be changing. There's lots that still needs to happen over the course of the next few years. And, I think interesting enough, as we've gone through 2020 was an exceptionally hard year for a lot of businesses. But one thing that it's done is it's made the ability for people to ask questions, be reflective, and it's really advanced where the next generation of financial services in the cloud and technologies will actually lead. And I'm very impressed with that. I'm excited about that. The US alone is going to be seeing, merchant processors having to have contactless payments within the next year or 2 years. And they were fighting that for a long time, so it's exciting. In Canada, we've seen that. And if you go globally, over in the Asia Pacific marketplace, my gosh, like they've had e-wallets and peer-to-peer transfer for the past decade. It's Alipay, right? Like, oh my gosh, like it's so frustrating. I couldn't, yeah.
Yeah. Don't get me started on our speed of growth in North America.
Yeah, it's definitely flipping the script though, in terms of, I know one of the questions that it does answer is, how can I make my data work for me instead of the other way around, working towards that $100, $200, and $300 data bill that we, us Canadians especially, have to deal with, let alone energy costs. And again, let's not get into it, but definitely solving a lot of subsequent problems down the line that people don't even realize is there, that it could get solved, and flip the script, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, well, with what you're doing, it sounds like, we have like Web 1.0, where like they take our data and then they sell it and make money off of it. And Web 2.0 is now you get to decide what you do with your data, and you get paid for your data. So you're sort of like doing banking 2.0.
2.0. Exactly.
So maybe you can explain, I mean, you've said the word neobank. I don't know if everybody in the audience understands what that means. I know like you say it like nonchalantly, Angela, because you've been in this space for a while. But for those out there who may not know, do you mind giving like a quick overview?
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, it's funny because when I started using it, there was days that I laughed saying, gosh, do I even fully understand what a neobank is? But the most simplistic terms is a neobank means completely digital. So we will never have a corner unit bank building. We won't have people working behind tellers. Everything's going to be accessible on demand in the cloud. So when you think about it, obviously the cost of real estate, like that brick and mortar example, there's a lot of cost that goes into that, which is where some of your service fees, when you deal with your bigger banks, that's what they have to pay for, right? They have staff, they got a lot of staff, they got buildings that they have to pay for, they got electrical bills that they got to pay for.
Well, so they have to compete for the biggest building in that one city that is in our country at the corner where we all know.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you got it. And then all the big cities, right? So for us, our big city is up in the cloud, right? Like it's our challenge is access and marketing. Really, it's really letting people know, hey, like we are a trusted network of financial services companies. We can bank, we can be your bank. And that's a new thing, right? It's really getting people to understand, like, you can do deposits, you can work with us. We have the capacity to do card issuance and do white label and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's where it is just, it's like trying to teach your grandma or grandpa how to use a cell phone. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's really going to be with a neobank. It's just saying, I have all access to my funding and my finances and my financial planning and my wealth management, my investment portfolio, all on here. But is it in here? Where is it? And that's what, you know, neobanking really is. It's like, it's just saying we're fully digital and automated. Obviously, from a customer service standpoint and a regular standpoint, yes, people will be working for us. There will be very high levels of secure tech, which I think is very important when you think about the capacity with working with the regulators. You're under scrutiny because, yeah, you're moving money. And if you're especially doing MSB licensing, like the peer-to-peer transfer, it's even more important. But again, going back to blockchain, that's where it becomes really transparent where the flow of funds are going. And that's what I absolutely love with working with neobanking, which is, yeah, this cloud-based bank, digital banking products.
Well, you know, just today I was speaking with two banks and I got charged for something and they don't think I ever paid. So I'm like, why are they calling me? And then, you know, they're like, well, you need to contact the other institution and figure out what happened. And I'm like, well, why don't you guys talk? Like, I'm the customer. Like, why are you making me call the other bank? Like, this doesn't make sense. And I called my own bank and I was like, well, what happened here? And they're like, oh yeah, the money went through. It's a pre-authorized transaction. You're gonna have to like, I asked the other bank, I'm like, could I just give you a screenshot to show you like that this happened? And they're like, no, you have to contact the other bank. And I'm like, so you're telling me you have a problem that happened. On my end, everything looks okay. I'm telling you, I'll send you the digital evidence that it happened. And you're telling me that you can't handle that. And I have to call you back to settle this. Like, that is not customer service. You know what I mean?
They record for quality and compliance and all that stuff too. And I always ask them during those exact conversations, like, what about this do you think I enjoy as a customer? Like, do you think I want to be on this phone with you to literally place the connection together for you guys?
I said, what's
the incentive?
What's happening with the settlement? I'm like, and I literally said on the call, I'm like, this should have been done on a blockchain that you can go and verify, and you don't need to call me at that point.
There's not even a question. Yeah, exactly.
What's the transparency we're talking about? Then Ethereum and Bitcoin are more transparent right now because you can see every single transaction that happened. And now they're getting me to look at settlement for them. So I literally am going, and they don't have a transaction number. Can you imagine? There is no transaction number. I'm going to have to physically download this file and show them that this payment was made and the money was never returned to me.
Wow.
So it's like, where is this money? This money just like,
yeah.
So anyway, I totally feel like this is so necessary because like, I'm sure I'm not the only customer dealing with this.
Oh gosh, no. Well,
like, how are you settling? How are you settling?
Yeah.
You know?
And I think even to reflect on that story, you know, I always laugh because obviously at this stage, still banking with one of the 5 banks in Canada, and you know, for appropriateness, I won't list them. But going back to customer service 101 is, you know, if you have money in your account and you want to transfer it to help your mom out, your family member, or maybe your son or daughter, and they put a limit on it, and then you try to phone them and you say, okay, well, I need to go over that limit because I'd like to transfer this to pay for, I don't know, their folks' home or their mortgage this month. Well, you should damn well be able to access that money if it's in your account. There shouldn't be, oh, we can't do that. And then same thing. Oh, you'll have to go into a branch to talk to somebody that's a like account manager. I'm going, same idea, right? Like, I think there's so many frustrating scenes, and I have seen how many international students in Canada, being somebody that's worked at Ottawa U and Carleton, that have come in and they're literally going to the money marts and getting charged 18 to 20% on a check their mom or dad have sent them because they're an international student, so they can pay for their tuition and their grocery bill. We can't get them a bank account because they're here for 4 years studying. You know, but so yeah, there's when you think about verification, like there's so much that can be happened on blockchain, as you put it nicely, Jason. I like how you did this. Like, it's not a hard thing to make that connection, to make
what's interesting is that even and it's not like they haven't had time to do this, because I can remember sitting in Pittsburgh when I went to school on a hockey scholarship, trying to get money from my parents and on a certain front, I could get it with just as easy as putting in my debit card, and it was money in, money out. But at a certain threshold, it was days, if not weeks. And to me, I was just blown away because with me down in Windsor, I can see Detroit. We would go over and spend money all the time, but then this whatever different transaction, which again, it's not that different, all of a sudden all of these red flags came up and it became almost impossible. Or I then resorted to going to like a Western Union and just absorbing the cost because it was cost out of convenience.
Yeah, you got the money right away, right? So
And this is 15 years ago, and yet here we are today, and
Well,
someone like yourself is like, I'm going to be able to do this, and it's like, finally, awesome, because the banks still don't do it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because like we're also in the middle of a pandemic, you know what I mean? So it's like, why are you telling me to leave my house and go transact with you? Like, how come you can't resolve this like digitally? This is 2021, like we're talking about, you know, like what are you guys doing?
A lot of true colors came out in the sense of opportunity on one end, but because of just a lot of people, like I know I was having conversations with people that they could just hear clinking and banging in the background because they're at home. And yet on another front, it's like they're not getting recorded, so they're not being watched, and their standards are completely out of the window. And now you're literally having this centralized system that is in a way almost like a wild west versus something like you're providing, which is structure and provide mutual benefit.
Yeah, like it's interesting because there's the importance of there's centralization and decentralization. We're looking obviously more at the decentralized mode, but there's that importance to still work with the regulators, which is what needs to change. It's the attitude, right? Like it doesn't matter what type of business you're in, it's the attitude of allowing this new form of technology that allows open business and open banking at a secure level to happen, making it easier for people to access. So like Justina, what you just experienced should never have happened, right? And that's what it comes, it's kind of like, it's sitting there and making change happen. And yeah, you have to have those people that are poking, I said poking the dead horse almost at this stage, because that's what it feels like at certain times, because it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and you're just creeping along trying to get change. But it is happening, and I think that's the most exciting part. And we're starting to see, I'm really excited, to work with a great Canadian bank as we move forward. And we'll be soon announcing who that is. And in the US, we had success with the team that's building out our payments company, Echo. And Ron and his team, from a payments perspective, they acquired a US FDIC chartered bank. So, being a part of that experience to actually doing an acquisition, Canada, it's not as easy to go in and buy a bank, but there's a lot of small state banks in the US, and their system's quite different. So being a part of that experience was really cool. And then the bigger piece is like a shout out to a great company that we're going to be doing some work with, which is Blockgration. And that's really where we've started to build in our AI and our blockchain technology. They've done an incredible job internationally. They are Canadian, although they got a large presence offshore. And that's, the team that's there is driving some things forward that are particularly of interest for many people to look at. So we're excited that they're coming on board from an investment standpoint. And that's really what's going to drive us forward. Like they have a lot of really good feet on the ground, making change. And I'm excited about the mode that they're going. They also have the ability to do tokenization on the open exchange. So they've got their own network. And that's where we're going to work really hard to build out the offer, because I think there's going to be a lot more that we can do on a global scale with this neo-banking interface that we're launching at TapnGo Technologies. So yeah.
Exciting times ahead.
Yeah, exciting times ahead. So we'll be looking to add, I think there's some great people I know that are listening that said they were joining today. I think Desiree's joining us. Justina, you introduced her out of California. Like lots of people are looking at what we can do to do better modes of micro lending, access to accounts for people that don't have access. Again, Canada, we're very fortunate. The US, there is a lot of underbanked. There's a lot of people that are newly landed immigrants in North America that don't have access to banking. And that's what I'm very passionate about changing. access for women in business that are looking for financing and tools. And that's where, working with companies, like shout out to, super impressed with Michelle Romanoff and Andrew D'Souza's company, Clearbank, and their team. Very disruptive. They really changed the game to support small businesses with an AI technology to look at ad spend. Those are great businesses that are making a difference, right? Afterpay's another one as a shout out. So, I'm excited. And then what did we have this year? Like Canada's largest IPO over and above Shopify, got a lot of recognition, which is NuVayPay out of Quebec. And, I'm really excited about what we're going to start to see make change. And it's really working with all of these great companies and their founders to start to pave a way and make a larger stance against some of these regulators to move forward.
Absolutely. No, I totally hear you on that. I think like Canada is definitely taking a leap forward. I think it is trying to do a lot of things. So I'm excited to see what the results will be. But I think we need people like you to kind of like push the envelope and say like, look, some of these things can really be improved upon. Let's serve the customer. Let's see how we can get, let's see how we can involve the community. Because if you're just going to go with the status quo and like, I mean, I'm thankful for our banking system. It's pretty stable, but I mean, there is people who can like benefit from like allowing them to enter into business by having that community support. And if there's a way to do that, or like educate even people about the like what they could do to get loans and things like that and have less barriers in that could be very interesting. I think like you mentioned earlier, financial literacy is something that's important to you, and I think it's important to me too. And I think Jason and I this year will be working on like doing some research on just thinking about how we can combine all that. I think we're just, even this morning we were discussing like looking at what like exactly how we can set our like corporate objectives to sort of have a longer term vision for what we're doing and to help the community. So, and I see a lot of collaboration, like you said, like Desiree, I know works a lot on empowering and trailblazing in the space. I know you're doing a lot of work. So I think it's about, a collaborative effort to move things forward and disrupt and just kind of like ask those difficult questions.
Yeah,
right.
for
So
sure.
definitely next step, evolution in the sense of like, I think back to when there used to be the gimmick was to put like your favorite sporting team or something onto a credit card. And now the companies are getting more involved where you spend it at certain companies, but the next step has to be where you're living the culture of your product that you're associated with. And that's
Bingo.
what's great about it.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's what makes us, Jason, totally unique, is really going at it from what community do you feel you belong to, and let's make you feel welcome, right? Like there's that position of saying like you're welcome here, and really that we do want you to ask all the questions and feel like there's somebody that can walk you through all steps, whether it's financial planning or whether it's budgeting or whether it's investments and savings, right? Like I think for next gen, it's really just getting people set up, and then you take that data to be able to offer even better incentives. So we've got lots of long-term goals, and it's collection. Like I think if for those that are listening, please, I'm an open source. You can find me on LinkedIn, and you can find me on Instagram and social. I'm very approachable. And I really want to get people that are Canadian and from the US and globally reaching out and asking questions and being there to support, because it's interesting. I think that's the biggest challenge, is the more people you have backing you, the more power I have to go to the regulators and the underwriters in the insurance world to say, look at the volume of people that want to be heard and want to have this product and program. This is important. It's almost like I always look at kind of like the crowdfunding. This is like a crowd community, and together we have to stand strong to say like, this is really important to us, and we want to be able to ensure that the next generation coming up has better access and accountability and makes life a little bit more affordable, right? And we'll make it through. Like a pandemic like this, there should have been a lot more services and funding put in place for small business owners, for example, and a product or a program like this would have been able to have helped a lot.
I totally
definitely an opportunity for transparency in the sense of here is an opportunity. Like we all talk about how we were forced into this, but this is now where like, the actual gamification could be incentivized and then tied in all together in the sense of, let's explore just how well this works. It's exciting. Can't wait to see this
Yeah.
unfold.
Yeah, it is exciting. So I don't know if there's any questions, Jason. I think if you were in Clubhouse, is there any audience questions that are particularly coming up, or do you think we've covered a lot?
This is, I guess, why we're having these, just to keep the excitement going, because you're a working example, and a lot of times there's not enough of that. It only, I guess, creates questions down the line in terms of what could we do with this, because it's binary. It's something that doesn't exist right now, and you're putting it into a one, and now everyone's going to be able to gravitate towards companies like yours. It's great.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, we're definitely excited. Our first product does launch and set in June. Hopefully, we'll be having a lot more news coming out in the forthcoming months. So this is kind of the exciting part for everything that's been transpiring over 3 to 4 years of work, where we're linking our marketplace software and our rewards piece, as well as the merchants we've got, and creating both in Canada and the US. The link between our banks and our processors, right? So, and then some really cool announcements with some of the teams, Blockration being one that obviously I've mentioned already. So it's I think, yeah, we're ready to kind of set sail and start, and then from there just allow our customers and our audiences to also guide us and lead us to become a better financial services and neobank that is there for them. And hopefully set precedents for others that are very curious and passionate in this space to also want to diversify and come into the space. And that's where, from a white label perspective, there will be lots of opportunity with the teams that we have, should there be the right people in different countries that are interested in taking this product particularly, and even wanting to take it on their own. So I'm very open to those conversations with teams, and that's kind of where we're headed.
Now, I have a personal question, and you don't have to answer it necessarily, but there's an interesting dilemma happening now in America, myself, X, and AA athlete. The cost per serve, in a way, where on top they're trying to justify the payment. And now I know in Canada we're a lot more limited in terms of the opportunities, but is there any chance of you potentially working along either like potential Olympians or Olympic athletes potentially? Because I know you see 100%. A lot of them.
Yeah. So going, Jason, like talking about your sport background. So Athletica Rewards, one of the cool parts is obviously being passionate in that area and the background. I'm still actually a pro cyclist. I'm doing my last attempt. It was supposed to happen last year, but like so many sporting events, it gets pushed. But I'm doing the UCI 1 hour indoor cycling world record in Aguascalientes, Mexico on Wednesday, September the 8th. And a part of that's actually to promote and really support Canadian athletes, particularly girls and women in sport. But better than that, Athletica's started to build out an athlete ambassador program. So a lot of us are really familiar with influencer marketing and how important micro-influencing is. Like that is the next gen, is allowing people to have small micro followers and fans that are engaged. Like that's the best way to build a community. It's like me going out on a bike ride, or you, Jason, going and playing hockey shinny with a bunch of guys and gals, right? Like those are your crew. And oftentimes if you're going to buy a new hockey stick or a new pair of skates, you're going to go to one of them and say, well, what's the brand you're wearing, or why do you like that gear the best? And that's what we've got, is a lot of these Olympic athletes that are amateurs coming into sport. Again, like they've got lots of in-kind sponsors for the products they need, but often they're limited with the financials to move forward. So Athletica can come in and actually be technically that sponsor, where it's a really good marketing platform for the brands that are sponsoring them, because now you got an athlete that's going out saying, hey, this is the water bottle or the sports supplement that I'm drinking after my hard ride today. And we can actually show the data and the analytics and the transaction spend that's been acquired after that athlete's posted it. And that athlete can get paid for that. That's never been done before, right? So that's where we started to create a really unique ecosystem. So for sure, if people are And this is coming from all avenues. We'll be launching the Athletica Ambassador Program right away. We're already onboarding athletes right now and looking for agencies that represent amateur athletes, not the pros, because obviously they don't need the money. This is really about the grassroots and those athletes that are, at that stage where they're looking for funding and finance and have, anywhere from kind of 5,000 followers up to like 100,000 followers, not looking for the person that's got the millions out there. They're pretty well set, but that's I'm really excited about that product because there's not one company being able to do like a split payment to really support athletes. And I think it's going to be a great way for brands to also really see the user case, right? Like I kind of say like a lot of companies, if you take like a big brand like an Adidas or an Under Armour or a Nike, which we all know, they'll sign a check for $25,000 to an athlete just because they have the budget, but that athlete might actually go and sell $100,000 worth of Nike gear that year. So, is it worth it to actually go and say, well, look, like here's the flat baseline sponsorship, but every single time they do a post or a share and there's transaction, there's going to be a referral or a commission that's now paid because it's going to be done through their Athletica ambassador profile. So that's how we differentiate it. And because it's connected to a technically like a blockchain profile, we can see the verification that authentic purchase happened through their fan base to that brand on that wallet. So that's that really changes the game in sport and sport funding in the future. I'm really hopeful for. Yeah, I'm super pumped up.
That's so awesome.
Well, yeah, it's exciting.
That is very exciting. And I think that's all I had. So I think with that, I just like to say thank you for joining us today and giving us the overview and telling us your story. Jason, what do you think?
No, that was a great place to end. It was we didn't plan that. That was a great ending. I love it.
Yeah, no, well, hey, especially going into a big 2 years ahead as we see the 2021 it's 20+1 is what the athletes are saying, Olympics in Tokyo, which still are on the calendar for in August, September, and then of course we've got the Winter Olympics only months after that. So more than now than ever, globally, our Olympic athletes and Canadian and American athletes for sure, as I know so many of them, they're trying really hard and the budgets are really obviously a harder go with the pandemic. So I'm excited to launch this and see where we can support that body for sure. It's cool. Well, thank you for having me today. I'm very impressed. And again, Justina and Jason, welcome any further conversations or questions that people have afterwards. Please, by all means, you can share my social links over LinkedIn, but all the best in the other blockchain conversations that you have. I can't wait to tune in and listen to some other incredible women in blockchain.
Well, thanks, Angela. And we look forward to speaking with you soon. I'm sure there'll be other chances for us to encounter. So
absolutely. Once we're launched, it'd be great.
Fantastic. Awesome.
All right. Thank you. Have a great weekend, everybody, and happy Super Bowl for those that are going to be watching.
Exactly.
Sounds good.